Brilliance Audio.
Lighthouse Burning by Jordan Farmer. Performed by Chris Abernathy. The only woman I ever loved told me secrets. These confessions always came at night, the bulbs of our empty wine glasses illuminated by the television's glow. I worshipped every inch of her body in those early days, but the conversations were my favorite part of our time together. She wanted to know all the things I'd sworn to never utter aloud. Once, while we sat by the fireplace picking at leftovers, Gabrielle had asked me about the worst story I'd ever heard. The worst details or the worst delivery, I asked. She normally would indulge that sort of deflection. That night, she pressed me. You know what I mean. I really don't. Like, the grossest thing ever? I knew a kid in high school who passed a kidney stone. They found him in the boys' room, lying beside the urinal with his pants around his ankles. I'd been rubbing her knee, so she stopped my hand from traveling farther up her thigh. I thought maybe she wanted a southern horror story. Gabrielle was a black woman who'd been raised in Montana, and since I was a hillbilly from a coal mining town, she might have wanted to know if I'd experienced any racist evil, things another white man might have told me while feeling safe among his own. I want to know the saddest thing you've ever heard, she said. I'd have to think, I replied, but two contenders immediately came to mind. The first was something I'd done to a boy named Brandon a long time ago. The other was the time my father shot his best friend, Charlie, in a backwoods poker shack. They'd been drunk, and Dad thought Charlie had palmed a suicide king. My father tried carrying his wounded friend down the mountain and taxiing him to the hospital, but Charlie bled to death in the back of Dad's Impala before they descended the final hill. My father said it was the only person he'd ever murdered during his outlaw days. I never killed anyone else, he told me. But if I'm being honest, that was mostly luck. He made no similar claims of innocence for his twin brother, Abbott, who maintained an even more notorious disposition. Something had kept me from telling her this story. I didn't have the narrative power to explain what Dad must have felt, realizing the dark leak of blood from Charlie's liver would drain dry before they reached civilization. The story shamed me. By that point, I'd understood she just wanted to talk about her own tragedy. What's the saddest thing you've ever heard? I asked. The heaviness in her chest sailed out on a sigh. My brother threw his ex-wife out a fifth-story window. She wouldn't tell him where the car keys were hidden, so he pushed her through the glass. I hadn't known if I should touch her, wipe away the tears that were coming. It hurts knowing that some part of him is part of me, she said. Many years later, in the days of our second national economic depression, I was daydreaming about Gabrielle's smooth thighs when I drove up on the Dairy Delight and saw it looked like someone had been gutted in the parking lot. The ground was covered in a thick red sludge, but the smell wasn't right for blood. The night before, I had driven out to Walton Richards' farm with my doctor bag because his boy had stepped on a nail somewhere behind the barn. I spent the evening chatting with Walton after irrigating the boy's foot with an antibacterial solution and bandaging him up. He really needed a tetanus shot, but that would have required a hospital visit. Walton had no gas or money for the trip. We'd stood out on the porch, Walton casting his eyes at the barn, which leaned sideways with age. I knew he didn't have any way to pay me, that even the normal alternative of fresh pork was gone since he'd slaughtered the last of his hogs. Cheaper to eat the animals than feed them. I'd left telling him not to worry, but the smell of the boy's blood hung in my nostrils all the way home like an omen. My newfound position as counterfeit country doctor had given me plenty of exposure to that sharp, metallic tang.